Happy Friday, everybody. I'm really excited for this session. Man, it's Friday. Are you feeling excited? Anybody out there feeling excited? Um, I'm here with Adam Kahana. He
Hello.
is he is a singer and songwriter and amazing guitar player. Ann Arbor and Detroit based. Hopefully, if you were watching the Grove channel, you just caught his premiere video that we launched on Facebook and YouTube. Great performance back in the summer when we were
Thank you.
outside, and uh, man, you really set the tone for that afternoon. Having you get up there and play, you really just like chilled everybody right out. Any angst anybody was feeling before you got up there, man, you just smoothed them right over. I know I personally felt that way hearing you perform, and it just sounded really great out there. So I think the video and the recording captured that well. Thanks to TimBlackman and Taylor Greenshields from Fundamental Sound for the mixing and mastering. Sounded amazing. But now we're here live in the studio, which is cool because the last time we did this, you were on Zoom. We were on Zoom, and it was
Yeah.
kind of like the whole virtual thing. So it's exciting that we could do this again. And you brought your guitar, and
Yep.
it's fantastic sounding Taylor guitar, and you play it really well. And this is really exciting because you just heard some songs. He's going to perform more songs, and more excitingly, we're gonna start out with a little bit of a cover song by one of my favorite artists. And we were talking before the show, and
Yeah.
I said, when John Mayer first came out, kind of like on the scene, I was not a huge fan of the super poppy kind of thing. Now he's grown as an artist over the years, but there you go. That's the one.
Your body is
Yeah, yeah.
Wonderland.
It's like some of the lyric repetition after a while just, yeah. It was kind of like the Say What You Need to Say song. I was just like, okay, say what you need
Yeah.
to say. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Catchy, but a little bit like. But he's grown as an artist, and obviously he's a fantastic guitar player. And I love the take that you bring to doing those covers. You do some really cool covers, and really tasty. So again, here with Adam Kahana, Friday night, Grove Studios, and we're gonna do this. So let's just start out with that because we're talking about John Mayer and good music.
Great.
Cool.
Welcome to the real world, she said to me condescendingly. Take a seat, take your life, write it out in black and white. Well, I've never lived the dreams of the prom kings or the drama queens. I'd like to think the best of me is still hiding up my sleeve. They love to tell you stay inside the lines, but something's better on the other side. I wanna run through the halls of my high school. I wanna scream at the top of my lungs. I just found out there's no such thing as a real world, just a lie you've got to rise above. So all the good boys and girls take the so-called right track, faded white hats, grabbing credits and maybe transfers. They read all the books, but they can't find the answers. And all of our parents, they're getting older. I wonder if they've wished for anything better, while in the memories, tiny tragedies. I love to tell you, stay inside the lines, but something's better on the other side. I wanna run through the halls of my high school. I wanna scream at the top of my lungs. I just just found out there's no such thing as a real word. Just a lie you've got to rise above. I'm invincible. I'm invincible. I'm invincible as long as I'm alive. I wanna run through the halls of my high school. I wanna scream at the top of my lungs. I just found out there's no such thing as a real world. Just a lie you've got to rise above. I just can't wait till my 10-year reunion. I wanna bust down the double doors. And when I stand on these tables before you, you'll know what all this time was for.
Yeah, nice. And that's one of those songs, right? Like that was like an earlier tune from him, and that was one of the ones I really loved when it came out. Right, like that whole that feeling, that feeling that he's describing in that song is. I think we've all experienced that exuberance of the, you know.
Yeah.
that- what is that song like? When you pick a cover song, like what does that song mean to you?
It has to tell a story.
Okay. Yeah.
And it has to have some leeway that I can really play around with. John Mayer is really kind of a master at voicing, you know, melodies and chords on the guitar, frankly, in a way that I would normally associate with somebody like Joe Pass or Wes Montgomery or George Benson. And he's really a student of all those guys.
Right.
So he was able to get from them what he needed in order to fulfill his vision.
Yeah.
And as you heard, I tried to play around by playing around with a minor chord at the end, even though it resolves to a major, just to see how it sounded.
Yeah.
So there was still, you know, a little bit that I kind of just tweaked with. I like to play covers a little bit differently every time.
Yeah, I notice that, you know, and I always appreciate that when somebody's playing cover, you know. It's evident that you're not trying to do it exactly like John Mayer might do it, like, which for some people is probably impossible, right?
Yeah.
But there are people out there that stretch to try to do that, but to stretch to reinterpret it in your own way.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite cover songs are done that way, right?
Right.
I always refer to it as like artistic reinterpretation.
Oh, yeah.
And then obviously if you bring in other instrumentation and stuff like that, I was just listening, my mom of all people, which like I didn't realize that she was watching Dave Matthews videos on the internet, but
Oh, wow.
she sent me a video of them doing All Along the Watchtower,
Oh, yes.
which is an incredible cover. Whether you like Dave Matthews Band or not, it's like that they just took that song and just like broke its neck and made it something else, you know?
Now, the incredible thing about that song is Dave Matthews' version is an incredible cover of an incredible cover.
Correct.
Because
Right.
Jimi Hendrix did not write that song.
Correct.
Bob Dylan did.
A lot of people don't know that, right? There's a fair people amount that don't realize that was a Dylan song, and so it's like
Yeah.
it's cool to listen to those different versions and realize how differently artists interpret those songs. So
And it's so interesting because that song is such a simple chord-wise song.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing. And then you add there must be some kind of way out of here,
Right.
said the Joker to the thief.
Yeah, and
And
you
then
hear
there's a whole story.
yeah, and then you know the you know that
Yeah.
that kicks in and you're like, oh man, it's so good. Yeah. That's right. I knew you would know how to do that, man. We could have fun with this all night long. I'm sure of it, man.
Yeah.
That's what's cool. I love your versatility. I love your knowledge of music. It's actually just really fun to rap. And I know you clearly you're a guitar player, but you've been doing some cool things since we talked last, and you know, stretching out and doing some stuff. And obviously, it's really hard to do right now, given you know the pandemic and everything like that. But you just played Jazz Fest,
I did.
and
the
it was a
Detroit Jazz
different
Fest.
sort of Jazz Fest,
It
right?
was.
And it was now was that your first time playing Jazz Fest?
It was as a professional musician. I played there once as part of a high school band. That
Okay.
was kind of it was put together by the artistic director of the Detroit Jazz Fest, Chris Collins. I was lucky to participate in his program called
Nice.
Jazz Week at Wayne, and I got selected to be a part of the combo that performed.
Very cool. Um, we just had, let's see, sabbatical. Bob was just on, and
Oh, they're crazy.
they were on Jazz Fest too, and so we kind of talked about like what was it like playing a festival like Jazz Fest in the era of COVID. How was that different for you?
The funk can't stop.
No, that's right. That's right. It can't.
The funk just
Yeah.
can't.
Talk a little bit about like who did you play with, and then let's talk a little bit about because you probably weren't playing that. What were you playing, and you know what was the day like?
So I was playing with Galen McKinney, who is one of my favorite musicians in the world, and she's just been such an incredible mentor to me and to so many others in the Detroit area. She is, among many other things, she was Aretha Franklin's last drummer.
That's
And
amazing.
she just carries such a wealth of knowledge. She was born into kind of a Detroit royalty family of musicians, the McKinney family. Her father, Harold McKinney, was one of the most killing pianists, and he played with just about everybody you can think of in the jazz world. And Bernard McKinney was a euphonium player, and I think a trombone player, and he played on Blue Note Records. He played on Freddie Hubbard's debut, Ready for Freddie, with Alvin Jones and McCoy Tyner,
Nice.
and Wayne Shorter was on that.
Yeah.
And I think that record came out in 1960. Yeah, I don't know how I know
That's-
all that.
Well, it's
but-
cool. That's what I actually I love talking to you because you do have like this wealth of knowledge about all this classic music. You're a young guy, you know, and I've you know obviously you know in music programs and things like that, you know, you're probably learning some history and stuff. I myself, even though I was a music major, I took some courses in jazz history and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember. Do you remember George Klein? Used to do. He was on WEMU for many years.
That name rings such a bell.
Yeah, I think his show was called. Was it called the Groove Yard?
Yes. Yep.
That was, you know,
Yeah.
I love rapping about that stuff, but you know, he would come in and he'd lecture for like a half an hour, and then we just listen to records, and he'd talk about the records and the history and all the different people and everything involved. So I love talking to you because you have this wealth of knowledge, and it, you know, obviously must inform your playing or who you're influenced by. But that's so cool that you got to play with this legendary drummer. I mean, Aretha Franklin's drummer. Like, that's, and you know,
Yeah.
you're a young guy doing the thing. How do you get involved like that? How did that come about?
Well, it kind of came about in a really kind of a sad way. I mean, I'll explain, but I kind of wish anyway. So her regular guitarist, Alex Anist, couldn't make that gig because he was beaten up by the police while serving as a medic at a Detroit Will Breathe protest while he was, I think, trying to help somebody else, like another medic being beaten up by the police, just senseless. And I mean, you know,
Unbelievable.
he should have been playing the
Right.
festival.
Right.
And I'm
And
friends with Alex. He's
how's
my
he
mentor.
doing?
I think he's doing well. He's doing better.
Okay.
He's back at home.
That's good.
Yeah, and and then Galen McKinney just decided to call me to ask if I can fill in for him,
Yeah.
and I accepted. You know, it's
That's-
an honor to just fill in his shoes on
Oh,
guitar.
my
'Cause
gosh.
he's such a monster guitarist.
No doubt.
And we're actually in a band together called the Ann Arbor Guitar Trio. With
Okay.
Evan Vesey, who's another wonderful guitarist.
Check that out, everybody.
And yeah, we all have an album out called Tides.
Where can people go to check that out?
I think it's on Apple Music. I think it's on Spotify. I think it's up on YouTube also.
Very cool.
But anyway, going back to the Jazz Fest thing, it was just, you know, I was honored to be there.
No doubt.
But in the way, I wish I weren't there.
Right. Well, yeah, based on that story, right?
Yeah.
And what's really double awful about that is, the times that we're in, right? To hear that story, that's right in our backyard here. And that's happening to people that we know and love, and we want to talk about those kinds of things. It's hard to talk about. But we want to make sure that those things are being highlighted and people know that those things are happening.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't caught on video, we should talk about those things. And that's kind of a double-edged sword for you, right? It's saying that you weren't you were there for this because of this unfortunate thing.
Right.
It's also pretty awesome that he thought of you to call and do the songs justice, right?
Yeah.
That's a really, gosh, were you nervous?
When the lights came up, I was more nervous about the sound check, just because I practiced with the music so much, and we had an
Sure.
opportunity to rehearse.
Yeah.
A couple days before the gig, and everybody was just on the same page. It was just because that was the rest of her working unit, so I was just trying to do my best to fit in with her existing vision.
Of course.
While still seeing if I can bring something to the what I can do to the table in order to help her with her vision. But it just everything fit like a glove.
That's good.
And so
Where might somebody catch that performance? Can we send a link out to them at some point?
I'll have
Do you know if it-
I'll have to ask Galen, but I'll get back to you on that. And going back to her performance, I actually brought a cover that I wrote lyrics to, and we ended up playing it at the Detroit Jazz Fest. Of a Charles Mingus tune, who's one of my favorite composers, and I'll play it here.
Awesome.
But I wrote the lyrics back around Memorial Day, just reading about the senseless murder of George Floyd and of Breonna Taylor and of Ahmaud Arbery and so many others. And I just sat down and the lyrics just took me like 10 minutes to finish.
Yeah.
Usually, sometimes lyrics take me years.
Right.
But I just really wanted to say something.
That's good.
And it just, and fortunately, it's one of my favorite melodies ever.
Yeah.
So it was just so easy to write lyrics to.
And so so if I'm hearing you were able to play that at
and we played
Jazz.
it at the
That's
fest.
really cool.
So, yeah.
And you said you could play that tonight? Or?
Yeah, I can play it tonight. Let me
Well,
just tune down. Oh.
That seems like a logical segue into another tune. It's a really important story and powerful. Really powerful that you could do that. These are hard times. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's if you're not affected by it, there's a pause and we have to do some changing. We have to do some speaking out and supporting of the Black lives that are being affected out there. And we're not okay with it. I think we're not going to be silent. And I'm happy to see some of the artists out there that are speaking out and addressing these things, because as you know, being a fan of the 60s and the turmoil in the 60s, artists spoke out then too. And it almost seems like artists for a while maybe weren't interested in being as overtly political, but it's good that people are doing it. And I'm seeing some pop artists even come out and speaking out against things, and it's a good thing. Art can support in that way. Can be a voice. So what is this song called?
It's called Goodbye Pork Pie Hat. It was written for Lester Young, who died the year that the song was recorded, and he wore a pork pie hat. That was just kind of his look. He
Yeah.
basically invented a lot of the jargon that we use today, including the word cool.
Wow.
He is credited with introducing that slang into and now everybody around the world says it.
It's
And
such a ubiquitous word.
and
It
he
really
said,
is.
and he invented the word homeboy.
Nice.
He invented the word crib to refer to, let's go to somebody's crib to hang out, like their place.
Yeah.
Um, and just yeah, a lot of almost his effect, in terms
Yeah.
of like changing the language.
Yeah.
If you think about it, just kind of had a similar effect on Shakespeare, because you think of all the poets and all the rappers who use words that he
Yeah.
basically coined
Yeah.
or that he was credited with. Um, it's nuts.
You have that kind of influence over culture so broadly, right? Like everybody says cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other ways you can say cool. You can say rad or dope or whatever. I mean, there's
Yeah.
other things, but like, I feel like cool is one of those things that never, it's not like groovy. Like nobody
Right.
says groovy anymore.
Nobody
really.
says groovy.
But people still
yeah.
say cool.
And when he said cool was meant to refer to something kind of negative. Like, oh, it's
Interesting.
like, cool is like not warm and fuzzy.
Ah.
It's like, oh, that's cool. And then it was kind of meant as kind of like a sarcastic thing, and it evolved into its own thing. Kind of like the way you say, oh man, he's a real bad player.
Right. Right.
Now, if you say he's a sad player, then
That's a different story.
That's totally different.
Yeah. My dude is sad versus, yeah.
Versus he's one bad cat. So
Right. I like that.
yeah. Anyway, I'll play Goodbye Pork Pie Hat with my words.
Perfect.
When someone is in trouble, what's the right way to begin? Especially when they're murdered by the color of their skin. Don't stand there, don't walk past them. Stand beside them, don't go turn your back on them. Waiting and suffering in silence, which is violence. Broken words and dreams deferred, compliance. When will Black Lives Matter? When someone is in trouble, what's the right way to begin? Especially when they're murdered by the color of their skin. Don't stand there, don't walk past them. Stand beside them, don't go turn your back on them. Waiting and suffering in silence, which is violence. Broken words and dreams deferred, compliance. When will Black Lives Matter, if not now?
That's powerful, man. I think the song just speaks for itself. Thank you for writing that.
I thank Charles Mingus for writing that.
Well, thank you for
But thank you.
I meant what I meant was thank you for bringing that.
Oh, no problem. You're welcome.
I'm looking at this is what I do sometimes. I'm looking at one thing and I'm thinking another, and a different thing comes out of my mouth.
No problem.
Yeah, beautiful rendition. I was thinking that's been covered.
Joni Mitchell.
Yeah. Jeff Beck.
Jeff Beck, that's right.
Yeah. It's interesting how songs, come in and out of culture, and how they come back at different times, and it's always interesting to see what gets covered and what gets picked back up. It's kind of the cyclical nature of history, unfortunately, that we would still have these kinds of issues going on in this country.
Yeah.
But it's important. It's important to bring those things back out.
Yeah.
So you've done Jazz Fest. You've done a few other things. You're working on some things. You've got some new music that you're working on.
Yeah.
I know you have a new song that nobody's heard yet.
That's right.
I don't want to bounce out of order with your set list, but
I'll go ahead and play right now.
whatever strikes you, we can do it anyway.
Awesome.
If you are just joining us, I'm here with Adam Kahana, Ann Arbor, Detroit musician, songwriter, guitarist, and all-around nice guy, who's tackling hard subjects in his music too, and I appreciate that. It's a good thing.
And like everybody, please go vote.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is the season. Definitely vote. It only takes you a few minutes, hopefully.
Yep.
Hopefully the lines aren't too long, or get an absentee ballot or a ballot or whatever you can to make it happen, but just do it, please.
Yeah.
Your vote matters. So you've got new music, new song. This is really cool, y'all, because this song just got kind of finished up today, and I think he was ready to share it with the world, and so you're hearing it on Grove Sessions here first. That's pretty exciting. We're honored for that, so thank you for sharing it with us, man. What's the name of the song?
It's called Lovely.
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 Lovely, that's how I know you. Lovely, that's how I call your name. And now it drives me insane to know that we are driven apart while they start playing their political game, waiting for the world in vain. Though we live just a mile away, it's the end of the world at the end of the day. But I know my heart and I'm not afraid. And now I'm stuck inside, watching you say lovely, la da 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 da, lovely, la da 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 da. love may not happen. I won't ask you to hold my name if you really wanna change. When all that you see is only a picture of me passing through the telephone line, and the connection isn't moving in time. And though we live just a mile away, it's the end of the world at the end of the day. But I know my heart and I'm not afraid. And now I'm stuck inside, watching you say lovely, la da 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 da, lovely, la da 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 da, la da 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 da, la da 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 da, lovely, la da 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 da. Lovely, la da 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 da, lovely, da 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 da, la da 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 da.
Really nice, man.
Thank you.
That's a catchy song.
Thank you.
That you must have plans to record that.
We'll see.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think if I could sway you, I think that's something that should be recorded with all the, the instrumentation you'd like to put in there, whatever you end up doing with it. But the core of that song, super catchy. That line, the living just a mile away. It's that end of the world at the end of the day. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that line. That makes a lot of sense. I can
Yeah.
hear the story in there.
Yeah.
I shouldn't pry, but that has to be a song about a real thing. It feels like a song about a real thing.
It is, and yeah. I mean, that's all I really have to say about that.
Yeah.
But it's just I just wrote a song based off of it because in the world of COVID, getting out and just meeting people at any level is just tough.
No doubt.
I mean, you think about this song. You think about even people just meeting family members.
For sure.
Like my brother just told me he had a friend whose family is is in China right now, and he is on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And he's been telling me that he doesn't have school for a couple months, and he's just living all by himself.
Right. Can't go anywhere. Can't see people. It's tough. It really is. And there's so many situations that I think we can't even. We all maybe have these own particular situations. We have friends or family or relatives in general that might be compromised and have to be even more careful. And it's been a weird 6 months. And weird is probably an understatement. I think it's been just downright awful for a lot of people too.
Yeah.
And pushing through all of it is tough. And that song really struck me in a lot of ways. I look forward to going back and listening to it again because it's my, as you listen to songs, they kind of sink in a little more, and you
Little bit,
notice
yeah.
more of the lyrics and stuff. But
Yeah.
but that lyric really kind of hit me. So clever lyricism, something that I would expect from you, man. Great songwriter. And I love just, I can see the jazz influence and watching you play the chords that you play, some of those chords, I'm like, wow, that looks really uncomfortable. I'm not jazz trained or anything of that sort. I'm a self-taught musician. So I always love how trained musicians approach and watching their technique and stuff. And I learn a lot from watching too, obviously, but I see what you're doing there. It's very cool.
Although, frankly, some of my favorite musicians weren't conventionally schooled.
Right.
I mean, they kind of just learned things, from, people on the scene just
Yeah.
by playing a lot and just by hanging with them.
Yeah.
I think the first person that really comes to mind for me is Pat Metheny.
Right.
I think that he was basically, as far as technique goes, self-taught, and as a result, he created a lot of technique that, would have had conventional music teachers left aghast.
Right.
But that worked for him beautifully, and that
That's
still
not how
works
you
for
play
him.
that chord.
It just
Right.
kind of opened up a whole new way of like approaching picking to a guitar and just
Yeah.
making each string ring out, among many other things. Instead of picking like that, he actually picks with the blunt edge
Oh,
of the
interesting.
among many other things that I can't even dream of because I'm not
Right.
Pat Metheny.
Right.
And I would just try to categorize. Oh yeah, his things he just. Oh yeah, he only does this.
Yeah.
No, no, he does so much more.
That's
than
where
that.
his whole sound comes from. It's just because he holds the
No
pick
way.
backwards.
But anyway,
Yeah.
that whole spirit, kind of just booking convention whenever it was convenient. Well, and the thing is, I want to mention also he was one of the most schooled musicians in terms of like understanding the records and in terms of understanding harmony
Right.
and taking harmony lessons
Yeah.
and just really seeking out what he needed to know at that particular moment.
It's just a different kind of school, right? Like school can come from anywhere. It can come from a formal program, which is great. It can come from, if you could be self-taught, or you could, and self-taught is such a misnomer, right? Because you're teaching yourself in a way, but you're also, just like anybody, right? You're
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
Going to school for something doesn't preclude you from learning things in other places, and continuing to be self-taught, because eventually you leave school, right?
Yeah.
And that's not what you're doing anymore, and now you're just a professional doing your thing,
And you have to be self-taught to some capacity.
yeah, to grow, right?
and to get a paycheck.
Yeah, well, that's yeah. Yeah, well, learning all the songs you had to learn for the gig that you just
Yeah.
experienced at the Jazz Fest. That was a lot of work, I imagine.
Yeah.
The hours and hours, and I think, if you're not a musician, you don't always see that. You see the end product. You don't see everything that leads up to it,
Yeah.
and the hours and hours of work and maybe trepidation that might be involved.
Oh yeah. Anything comes out of anything that's worthwhile comes out of growth,
100%.
and a lot of it is just realizing mistakes and just learning from them.
Yeah, or maybe failing.
Absolutely. I am lucky to say that I have failed many times,
Yeah.
and I'll continue to keep failing
Right.
because I've succeeded many times, and I know that even though the number of failures greatly outweighs the number of successes,
Right.
it's fun to fail.
Right. That's good. That's a good attitude to have. Not everybody has that. It's like, fail stands for first attempt in learning, right?
Yep.
Is there a what I guess if I'm thinking about like difficult songs or difficult gigs that you might have had to prepare for, like what do you do? I mean, obviously rehearsing is one thing, learning the song is one thing, but like is there anything that you could share with, any aspiring, guitarists or performers out there that sort of maybe you didn't learn in school, that just, you learned from just playing or being with other musicians? Like what helps you prepare for things that are really difficult?
Seeing the music that you're going to be playing on the gig. That's what it comes to. Just listening to it so much and just internalizing it.
Yeah.
And I know if I, the ultimate thing is just to dream about it, because you can't control dreams. And if you just happen to dream about the music, then, but like getting to that level where that music is just so ingrained in you.
Yeah.
And no matter what you do, it just kind of comes out from you. You don't have to really put much thought into it.
Developing a muscle memory.
Yeah.
And being able to be a little more on autopilot to some degree.
When it's-
Autopilot's probably a bad word for it, but you know what I mean.
Being able to not really have to pay attention too much to the nuts and bolts of the music in order to convey the bigger picture.
Sure.
And as I've grown as a person and as a musician, become more mature, become more professional, I've really attempted to just do that.
Yeah.
In any way I can.
Yeah. What do you what shouldn't you do?
Don't slack off. Don't take anything for granted, even if you think, a gig, oh, it's another gig.
Right. I got this.
Yeah. because the real joy in being a musician is just playing the music.
100%.
So if you don't really invest in that, then you're not really fulfilling what you want out of it, which doesn't really make sense to me.
Right.
Because if you're in it, and even when you have a day where you're like, I kind of feel crummy or whatever. I've had days like that, and I as much as I can, I still try to find a joy and just try to prepare as best I can
Yeah.
because it brings it builds character.
Yeah, it does. I know, like as I'm listening to you talk about that, I'm thinking, there's been those gigs where I just, for whatever reason, just feel like it was personally a terrible gig, and then somebody will come up to you after and go, "Oh man, that was so great," and you're like, you're in your head, you're like, "That was awful." Like
Yeah.
I have those. Do you have those moments? Because I do. I know I played the songs,
Yeah.
but I didn't feel good about it, and sometimes I don't know why. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't think I played as accurately as I would have liked to. I think maybe it felt sloppy for some reason. Do you have those moments?
Oh, I used to feel like that all the time.
Yeah.
Especially when I was like getting rejected from competitions and just getting my chops together.
Yeah.
But now I just like the music overall so much, and I'm just
Right.
excited at what I can do with the actual, with the
Yeah.
music, not with the music business or with any competitions or anything
Yeah.
like that.
That's
I
kind
mean,
of
if there's
another
something
story.
that
Right?
I want to get out of the competition, then I'll apply.
Yeah.
But I've applied and been rejected from so many that at some point it just kind of bounces off my skin.
Right. That's good.
And when I do get accepted, it's a pleasant surprise.
For sure.
But anyway, what was I saying?
You gotta shoot a lot of 3-pointers to get good at 3-pointers. It's about the repetition. So even competitions or anything else,
And you have to be fine with the fact that you may fail.
yeah, you might miss sometimes.
Otherwise, if you bank on succeeding so much, then you just tighten up, and then you have an even greater chance of failing.
Yeah.
But you just
Being
at some
stiff on
point,
stage is a bad thing.
yeah, at some point you just gotta let the ball fly
Yeah.
and just do what you did. Commit it to memory. Just put all your focus in that, and just hope for the best.
Be in the moment.
Yeah.
Listen to the other musicians on the stage.
Yeah. I mean, now I just, I just try to listen to all my gigs after I do them.
Yeah.
And if I find something I thought, oh, that sucked, I find out why it sucked.
Yeah.
I get it, and then I run away from it as fast as I can. Otherwise, I'm just going to be in a state of mind. I'm like,
Right. Yeah. You could fixate on that for some time, I imagine.
practice it. I play along with it just to see how I could
Yeah.
do it right next time. But otherwise, I just
Is that
put
a
it away.
is that a really consistent routine for you when you are
I
able
force
to
myself to.
do you? Yeah, that's
and then
good.
I just say, it was just that gig. Next gig I may screw up, but at least, this time and, between that time and now, I know to do this next time. It's like you just change one thing and eventually just change one small thing enough times, let's say 50
Yeah.
times. And suddenly it begins to sound pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm also studying computer science, and by the way, it's the exact same thing.
Right.
I used to get D's on projects, D's on tests. I actually have a midterm next week.
Oh man.
So
Sounds intense.
yeah, it's crazy, but just changing one thing at a time, just going and just trying to be as objective as possible,
Right.
and just trying to say, oh, just if I can really get locked into knowing that falls into place, where it needs to be,
Yeah.
then I don't even have to worry about it, and then I'm not as focused on the grade anymore. I'm just focused on just answering the right and answering the question with the right answer.
Sure. That's interesting. I'm recalling back to our conversation earlier in the year, and I think you had mentioned that you were studying computer science.
Yeah.
And I'm also aware of many brilliant, successful musicians who also have this other path. I mean, I'm thinking of Brian May from
Oh, he's nuts. He's a physicist, isn't he?
astrophysicist or something like that. Maybe we talked about this. I'm having a little bit of deja vu, but I just find that so fascinating. What for you is what is the parallel that drives you to something like computer science, being, a talented musician? What is and do you see at some point those things coming together in your career? Do you have an overall plan, or is it just something you're kind of drawn to?
I'm just really drawn to the overall critical thinking and just creative process.
Yeah.
which, you know, computer science and music are both arts,
Yeah,
and they're both lifelong arts.
it is a creative process, right?
Yeah, as far as combining them goes, the thing I like about music is the actual sound itself,
Right.
and I want to keep it that way.
Gotcha.
And if I go into computers for the sake of achieving a certain sound, and I happen to use my coding skills in the process,
Right.
then that's that.
Yeah.
But it's for, you know, in the service of getting the sound that I want.
Right.
For computer science, it's, you know, I'm doing a lot of data analysis. I'm involved in some research. It's answering questions, you like mining for stuff that we already know. And this type of stuff is all over the news because of coronavirus. You know, on the New York Times, the first thing you see on the website is a bunch of curves. You know, a bunch of
Data,
data. You know, daily infection rates and stuff.
for sure.
All data science. That's
Yeah.
what I'm studying now.
Yeah.
So it's I shouldn't say it's cool because COVID is tragic.
Right.
And this year has just been nothing short of awful.
Right.
I hope that if anything, people this year have a greater understanding and knowledge of stats and of reading math and of news. And I really hope that people think that math is a lot cooler than it once was,
Yeah.
because it's really helping literally save lives.
100%. I agree that. I like that take on it. I think for some of us, not being a strong math student myself growing up,
Oh, me neither.
now, you know, now that I'm older, I definitely appreciate what goes into that, particularly when you're using data to solve issues and,
Yeah.
and solve problems. So, and I find it fascinating how data gets used in the music world, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, you can look at, you know, now because we have all these digital outlets for music, you know, you can look at and you go, oh, wow, there's 25 million active SoundCloud creatives that are uploading music actively. And you have a real good sense of like who's out there and what people are doing. And,
Yeah.
you know, we could talk about the validity or not the validity, but like the, you know, the quality of what's being uploaded. But it's cool that people have like that platform that they can
Yeah.
create music and share it like
Yeah.
literally with the world, and people can stumble across music that you never would have heard. And then you have like all these little data points of you know how often music is being uploaded and that sort of thing. It's fascinating, really.
Yeah. I mean, I think that all music is subjective, and
Oh
you know,
yeah.
so why not just, you know, have more, I guess, data to work with? You know,
Right.
data being songs and stuff. Why
Yeah.
not just kind of like, you know, have everything that, you know, as much of it can be out there, just so that everybody has a chance to be heard. And, you know, worst case scenario, you put your stuff up and your family and friends listen to it. I mean,
Right.
that's beautiful. You're still sharing music.
Yeah, it's I heard I not heard but I read once how the you know the digital revolution in music sort of it 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 almost like returned music to the idea of like what folk music was originally, which is, you know, there was not other forms of entertainment. People would just get around and,
Yeah.
you know, sit around in the porch or the living room, whatever, and play music after. And
Yeah.
I was like comparing it to that because it's like, and now with some of the digital technologies, you literally can create music without even playing an instrument and come up with some pretty amazing stuff. So like that's a fascinating thing. It was an ad that kind of popped up on Facebook or something. It's a new plug-in or whatever, and basically it was this guy in front of a microphone. He could sing, and he was humming his tunes or you know oohing and eyeing or whatever, and the plug-in was converting it into different instruments. It was and it was like this 60-second you know commercial for this plug-in, and I was like, huh, that's really incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
how just even like think about you know somebody that has a disability and they can talk and move their mouth, and they have music in their head and they want to share it, and this plug-in would actually give them an avenue if they couldn't use their limbs or they were born without them and they or you know they had some disability where they couldn't do that, and it still allows them to create music. I love stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah.
All right, we tend to go on down rabbit holes sometimes.
Oh, that's great.
Sometimes
I
it's
enjoy
me. I do, but you brought some more music.
I'd
What
like
else
to play
would you
this
like to
next one
play?
for my grandmother. She just
Oh,
moved here from San Diego.
very cool.
to
What's
be
your
closer to
grandmother's
her.
name?
Her name is Ellen.
Ellen?
Yep.
Classic.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ellen.
Yep.
Hopefully you're watching tonight, or maybe you'll watch later on, but this goes out to you.
Yep. I was actually just playing this for her earlier this afternoon on piano,
Nice.
but I'll play it here.
Very cool.
And I'll sing it.
Perfect.
The autumn leaves of red and gold. The autumn leaves. The falling leaves drift by my window. The autumn leaves of red and gold. I see her lips, the summer kisses, those sunburnt hands I used to hold. And since you went away, the days go longer, and soon I'll hear old winter song. But I miss you most of all, my darling, when autumn leaves start to fall. The falling leaves by my window, the autumn leaves of red and gold. I see your lips, the summer kisses, the sunburned hands I used to hold. And since you went away, the days grow longer, and soon I'll hear old winter song. But I miss you most of all, my darling, when autumn leaves start to fall. The falling leaves drift by my window. The autumn leaves of red and gold. I see your lips, those summer kisses, the summer hands I used to hold. And since you went away, the days grow long, and soon I'll hear old winter song. But I miss you most of all, my darling, when autumn leaves start to fall.
That was nice, man. I'm gonna just comment on that, like watching you play the acoustic guitar with those jazz runs and stuff. I know like acoustic guitars have been around for a long time. I think that would be incredibly hard to do those runs on an acoustic guitar. I've just been playing electric so consistently, and you know, I'm bad because I don't pick up the acoustic guitar as much, but I love the way that sounds, man. It's really
pretty
Thank
cool.
you.
And I know you play electric guitar as well as other instruments, but uh, is there something that you enjoy more, or do you enjoy all of all of the guitars equally in terms of acoustic versus electric? Different things for different instruments,
Different things for
possibly.
different instruments. I know that if I can play something on acoustic, I can play something on electric.
Right,
It isn't really true for me necessarily the other way around.
right.
I mean, if I can make stuff happen like on acoustic guitar,
You can get that done on an electric, right? Yeah,
yeah, I mean, if I can just make that happen
yeah,
um, on an acoustic, then I can go much better to an electric.
no doubt.
And it's crazy just like working out like fast runs on acoustic
Yeah,
and just really trying to like get all the aspects of it down just for it to sound as, as natural as it can.
yeah.
Yeah, I can go down a whole rabbit hole.
For sure, for sure. It's okay. We do that sometimes, but yeah, and I do kind of like I tend to gravitate towards like the gear sometimes just because I'm a nerd like that. But the Taylors lend themselves. I mean, they're a little slimmer neck, and the action feels really a bit easier than say playing
Yeah.
an older Martin or something with a big baseball bat kind of neck or something
Yeah.
like that, right? Because you select your instruments based on certain kinds of playability, but it sounds great, man. The jazz stuff is very cool on that instrument there. So,
Thank you.
and I like the variety of stuff that you brought with you today and are sharing with us. If you're just joining us, Adam Kahana, Ann Arbor and Detroit, singer, songwriter, guitarist, composer of planned and spontaneous music. And I like the spontaneity. What do you think, makes a great guitarist great? Or even and separately, maybe a singer-songwriter great?
I think what makes a great musician great in general is just how much you can hear their soul through their instrument. Because ultimately, it's an instrument. I'm just saying that in the broadest sense of the word. An instrument, is something that is a mediator between, like, a point A and a point B.
Yeah,
A microphone is an instrument to amplify a voice. A guitar is an instrument to kind of convey a certain sound and a certain feeling that you wouldn't be able to otherwise get, like, if it weren't there.
right.
Same with
That's
the
a good
piano.
point.
So it's just making that connection really transparent.
Mhm.
And just, I feel like easy to understand. That term should be said carefully because I'm not meaning to say that, it should sound simplistic,
Right.
but it should sound, I guess, effortless, as if, you could assume the instrument was just part of their body.
Yeah, I like that.
I mean, when you hear Stevie Wonder, you don't really think of it, but he's playing like all the instruments on all of his albums. But it doesn't really matter because it's his
Yeah.
music.
Right.
I mean, there's a group of people that just thinks he's one of the greatest bassists ever because of what he does with the left hand on the keyboard.
Right.
Most people don't really pay attention to that just because they're so caught up in the music. And I think
Yeah.
that that's the ultimate compliment
For sure.
when you can say, "Oh man, well, they're gonna be like technical people and musicians and people who specialize in that stuff. They're like, oh wow, listen to that left hand."
Right.
But the greatest compliment is for somebody who doesn't really care about all that stuff, just wants to go and hear a story,
For sure.
and are just satiated.
Yeah, and they don't know he's using his left hand to make that sound that they're hearing anyway. Doesn't really necessarily matter because it's everything else. It's the full package. Yeah, I agree with that. That's a great point. You mentioned some of your favorites. We've got a solid idea of who some of your favorites are. Definitely, you seem to dabble in like a lot of the like '60s kind of stuff too. That seems like a pretty heavy influence. But what else what are you listening to these days?
Honestly, one of my favorite things to listen to is just silence.
Yeah,
I think of
I
that
can
as
relate to
music.
that.
I mean, you think there's a great record label out called ECM, and I think their motto is the greatest sounds next to silence or something like that.
Yeah,
And I think COVID, just being home in quarantine and stuff, just giving me more time to read,
yeah,
more time to, I guess, just exercise and run and like do stuff
Yeah.
safely, of course, but just really try to get outside of my own head. And sometimes, whenever I put on headphones, I always feel like I'm just way too much into myself.
yeah,
It's all, I'm not really interacting with anybody else when I have my headphones on.
for sure.
And that's one aspect of listening to music today that I just really don't like as much because, people used to listen to music exclusively, either at concerts or they'd go home and put on a record.
Yeah,
With MP3 players, most of people's listening experience is just listening on headphones.
yeah. It's a solo. It's a
It's a
solo.
It's a solo
Activity, right? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But listening, like going back to musicians to answer your question, I love listening to Charlie Christian
Charlie Christian.
whenever I need inspiration
Okay, cool.
because so many things about guitar and about music in general came from what he played.
Yeah,
Hearing it all is just to me it's kind of like hearing the source
right,
because out of him came B.B. King, Wes Montgomery,
right.
also Eric Clapton,
Yeah.
John Mayer,
Mm-hmm.
But
Standing on the shoulders of giants.
yeah, and it's funny because there's some stuff Charlie Christian still does that I haven't really heard a lot of people touch. The closest person I think, out of everybody, or one of them that I know to Charlie Christian is my professor Miles Okazaki. Great guitarist who really spent a lot of time and with Charlie Christian. And, his professor, he studied with the person who studied with Charlie Christian.
Wow.
Charlie Christian taught Barney Kessel, who taught Rodney Jones, who taught Miles Okazaki. So
That's a pretty.
I'm
That's
learning from him.
That's really cool.
So it's just kind of like my. I mean, I hold a tenuous claim, but like my great grandfather on the guitar or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
and
cool lineage.
It's
you
great
know,
because
and
he
it's
has
cool.
millions of children.
Yeah. Right. That's a good point. Yeah. And it's important. I love the influence that people can have in that way. How that can pass on, through other musicians in that way. So and so was influenced by so and so and so on. Right.
Yeah.
It's a really beautiful thing. It's one of the things I certainly appreciate about music. I know you've got some other songs. You into playing another one that
Yeah.
of your choice? What do you
Sure.
got?
I'll play another John Mayer one, and I can play another of my own after that.
Oh, perfect. I'm gonna give a quick shout out to my friend Neil Paulsen, who's a known John Mayer John Mayer fan, and in fact, I think probably late last night he was sending me some links to some stuff that I should absolutely listen to. He's always exchanged it. I think he made me a John Mayer fan. I'm gonna blame it on him, but I'm glad he did because I really appreciate what John Mayer's been doing and what he is doing, and being a Grateful Dead fan. Gotta say,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool that he's doing what he's doing with the Dead. I think he's doing a great job. Some
Yeah.
Dead fans will totally disagree with me and take me to task on that, but I don't care. It makes me. I like the fact that the Dead's music is being introduced to yet another generation of people who might not have otherwise listened to that music. So it's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like a Michael Jordan or LeBron James debate, with John Mayer and Jerry Garcia.
Yeah. Oh,
I
no,
mean,
no
it's
doubt.
John Mayer is standing on the shoulders of giants.
Of course.
At the same time, it's kind of like comparing apples to oranges.
Right.
I mean,
Different time, different generation.
it's not the Grateful Dead; it's Dead and Company.
Right. Right. Yeah,
because
I
Jerry
mean, it feels
Garcia's
like
gone.
it feels like the Dead still to me, just because Bobby Weir and
Yeah.
and you know
Phil Lesh.
Mickey Hart and yeah, Phil Lesh is not playing with them so much, but like they're sort of carrying on a tradition, I guess. When I loosely say the Dead, yeah, it's hard to be the Dead without Jerry, but
Yeah.
I like that they're carrying it on in the way that they're doing. I think it's cool, man. So,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do, John Mayer wise?
I'll play Neon.
Perfect, very cool. We're here with Adam Kahana. He's gonna play a John Mayer tune.
Awesome.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
I love that. When sky blue gets dark enough to see the colors of city lights, a trail of ruby red and diamond white hits her like a sunrise. She comes and goes and comes and goes like no one cares. Tonight she's out to lose herself and find a high on Peachtree Street. From mixed drinks to techno beats, it's always heavy into everything. She comes and goes and comes and goes like no one cares. She comes and goes and no one knows. She's slipping through my hands. She's always buzzing just like neon, 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 neon. Who knows how long, how long, how long she can go before she burns away. I can be her angel now. You know it's not my place to hold her down. And it's hard for me to take a stand when I would take her anywhere I can. She comes and goes and comes and goes like no one cares. She comes and goes and no one knows. She's slipping through my hands. She's always buzzing just like neon, 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 neon. Who knows how long, how long, how long she can go before she burns away.
comes and she goes like no one cares. She comes and she goes. She's slipping up through my hands. Oh yeah, always buzzing just like a neon, 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 neon. Who knows how long, how long, how long she can go before she burns away.
Oh man, it's Adam Kahana, everybody. Ann Arbor, Detroit singer-songwriter, guitarist, and composer, joining us on a Friday night here at Grove Studios for Grove Sessions. I love the riff in that song. That had to be one of the first things that caught your ear when you heard that run. Was that it? Was it like, oh, that's, yeah. I mean, that whole
Yeah.
progression is just so sick. It's just like, and again, not easy to play.
No, I've been learning it.
And
I'm
sing
trying
at
to
the
learn it
same
for
time.
7 years.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
were you like, I think the thing is sometimes his music is deceptively simple when you're listening to it all recorded and produced and it comes on the radio and you're like, oh, it's so catchy.
Yeah.
But when you see him playing it or see you playing it, you're like, that's a complicated thing to learn how to do. It's very
Yeah.
cool.
And a lot of it is just the melody and the guitar.
Right. It's, yeah.
Yeah.
It feels unusual for a pop song when you really dissect into it, but it's,
It's really the production that makes it like a
Sure.
really the sound of the drums.
yeah. Yeah.
And you know, it's a great drummer. That
Yeah.
particular sound I associate very much with like a pop type thing, especially like in the early 2000s. Like I hear the drums and I think of like Fast and Furious, you know,
Right.
with the soundtrack with like the drums and stuff like
For
that.
sure. And
Just-
the
yeah.
production is always so crispy, for lack of a better term. You know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah. I'd love to hear him do that, record that song in the studio again.
right. Right. Yeah.
Updated.
I agree. I have some of my own music that I'd like to do that with as well. You know,
Yeah.
I think, yeah, to some degree. I wonder, you know, how many, and I know musicians do that from time to time, especially if they've had, you know, very long and illustrious career. They'll come back and they'll re-record some things and like, oh, that was, you know, because production values change from decade to decade. It's like listening to stuff from the 80s or whatever. There's a very, you know, a lot of the in sounds or synthesizers that are people are using, but I think we're now in a time where like people are plucking out of the past again and inserting it into a modern sensibility. It's pretty cool to see what people do. But yeah, that's a great song. So
Yeah.
yeah, and you pull it off really nicely on the guitar like that. Love
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah. If you have not seen Adam Kahana perform before, you know, keep an eye on him. He's going to be a musician to watch in many years, and potentially some kind of brilliant computer science invention, maybe too. So, watch out for that too. But watch out for him. He's popping up in different groups. Ann Arbor Guitar Trio.
Yeah, and
was one of
actually,
them, so-
I contributed a little bit to Speak Mahogany's record.
That's right. Yeah, shout out that new. They just came out with a new
Mine.
record, which is fantastic. So
Yeah.
again, yeah, look out for his contributions to other records. Very involved in the local music scene and really cool record. What was it like working on that stuff?
Oh, I was playing in a band with Paris for I think a good 6 or 7 months.
Yeah,
Just working on a lot of that material, and it's just it's so awesome just to see how he's developed that, because it's been a couple of years since I played in his group and since he recorded a lot of the material.
yeah,
So just seeing what he and the band have done with
I think the record sounds
a
great.
lot of that. Yeah. I love just listening to it as a fan.
Me too, man. I like I didn't realize it was out, and then I suddenly came across my feed or something like that. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. They came out with a new record, and it sounds fantastic. So if you haven't checked that out, what was the title of the record again?
It's called Mime.
Yeah, Speak Mahogany, Mime. It's out on all the major platforms like Spotify and such. Adam Kahana is playing on that record, and you got the Ann Arbor Guitar Trio thing going. You got your own stuff going. Anything else that you can share that's in the works? That
I can
you know.
play a couple instrumental tunes or one of them or something like that. Just
Yeah, give
stuff
us
I'm
give
working
give
on.
us give us a little outro. I think we've got time for at least one more. Pick your choice, pick your poison, if you will. Beautiful Friday night music poison.
I'll play two back to back.
Perfect.
They're relatively short.
Cool.
One is slower, one is faster.
All right. And these are original tunes?
Yeah.
All right, original tunes from Adam Kahana here on a Friday night, Grove Sessions. Appreciate y'all tuning in. And if you didn't catch the premiere video from his performance at the one of our Grove Sessions out in the courtyard this summer, it was a great performance. High quality audio. Go back and listen to it.
And I just wanted to say thank you so much to you, to Eric, to Max, to all the people here at Grove for really keeping the local music scene going.
Thank you, man.
It's a big
Appreciate
responsibility, and you guys are doing it so well.
We're doing our part. I hope we're doing our part. It means a lot to us. This community means a lot to us, and so if we can help support that. That's our goal, man. Uh, I loved both of those songs. First one's beautiful. That last one you were having a lot of fun on.
Yeah.
That feels like a really fun song to play. God, I don't know. The other, two different moods. What was the first one called?
They don't have names yet.
Oh, cool. Even better. You're hearing it first. Adam Kahana playing some of his original instrumental stuff that maybe might have lyrics eventually. Who knows? But
You know, my dad's been telling me to write lyrics to those, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure they'll come. I just don't know when.
yeah. Songs are like that, right? Really cool. I could see you having fun on that last one, and it's definitely I don't know, it had like this Leo Kottke maybe kind of thing or something. I don't know.
He's a
That
great
that's
guitarist.
the first thing that jumped out of my mind. You know what I mean? There's a number of people playing like kind of in that vein, but it's good stuff, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks once again for gracing us with your talent and your presence.
You're welcome, Rick. Thank
Always
you so
a
much.
pleasure seeing you. Talking about stuff, going down rabbit holes together. I really look forward to seeing what you do next, man. And
too.
keep us in the loop.
Will
Keep
do.
us apprised. Love to have you back sometime, and
Thank you.
we'll keep doing the thing. And more importantly, we'll keep supporting the local music scene. As you know, we live in this part of Michigan. We live in this great state. So much rich musical history and bones. To stand on the shoulders of giants and bask in the history of what so many great people have come before and done. And it's really cool to live in an area with so many talented people and young people coming through the universities and studying music and stuff. And it's one of the things that's always inspired me about this area in general. And being in the proximity to Detroit is just super cool. So
Yeah.
I know you agree.
One of the all-time great music cities.
Yeah. And it doesn't always get that big attention. It's not the LA, it's not the Nashville.
It's always been there.
But it's always been there, and it's really cool that we get to participate. I'm so happy to hear that you, despite the awful situation that kind of puts you in that gig, it's good to see you getting out there and doing things even in this time that's really hard. And
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing what next year looks like. I think we're all kind of like washing our hands of literally washing our hands of 2020. Like, okay,
Yeah.
can 2021 be better?
Yeah.
And I think we can do that together.
Yeah.
We just got to keep stay as positive as we can, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I just want to take this opportunity, to say Black Lives Matter. Please vote.
Please vote.
Every vote counts.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for that. I appreciate everybody that comes in here is just generally very conscious of what's going on. I think a lot of us, and artists tend to, in some ways, feel that we can contribute in some way and speak out and share our voices too. And I'm glad that you're not afraid to be political or anything like that. So that's good. Appreciate that. Adam Kahana, again, go back, check out the stuff, check out the new Speak Mahogany record, check out his performance if you'd like to hop over to YouTube.
We premiered it at 7 o'clock, but it will stay there in perpetuity. Also on Facebook, check out the performance. Put it on some good speakers. Taylor Greenshields from Fundamental Sound is a fantastic sound engineer.
He's wonderful.
Really great guy to work with. If you need some recording done, Taylor's a fantastic engineer to work with. So,
Yeah.
Thanks to TimBlackman for the great video as always, and Max Price, who is not here today. Usually he's joining me on these podcasts, but he's got some other things going on. But thanks to Max Price and the rest of the Grove Studios team, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys next Wednesday. We get every Wednesday and Friday right now, so
Wonderful.
yeah.
Look forward to tuning in and catching one of you
One
guys'
last question, because I asked you this last time.
Oh, sure.
A lot of things are still uncertain right now. What do you think is still most certain?
A couple things to mind. Number one, human nature. Number two, love. Really two things that we can't change and that will always stay with us.
Yeah.
Um,
Focus on the love, right?
Yeah, we need to negotiate the two and find a balance between the two because human nature is not perfect. It's very flawed.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think the only thing, in common that every human being has is we have the capacity to love. And unfortunately, we also have the capacity to hate.
Yeah.
And we need to reconcile that. And we need to understand it's normal to feel those, emotions. But the thing that we do is we know how to keep them in check. We know how to use them. We can
Love that.
we can use them as instruments.
Yeah. It's a great analogy.
For better or worse, we have done terrible things using hate as an instrument of terror.
Absolutely.
We have done wonderful things using love,
Agree.
as an instrument for more love.
Yeah.
So we need to have more love
Oh man,
and know what to do with our hate.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally, I love that. I couldn't have said it better myself. Adam Kahana, also philosopher. Thanks for coming, man.
Thank you.
Always a
Rick.
pleasure. Everybody have a great night. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. Get out there and practice some love. Listen to some music or listen to some silence.
Yeah.
Because silence works too.
Yeah.
Cool.